everybody, and welcome to my video today. I am sitting in my pantry and we're going to talk a little about preparing, about being a prepper, or about having food even if you don't can. So this video is for a lot of people who don't can. You know, a lot of times we think about prepping and you see a pantry like this and you think to yourself, well, that's great for you, but I don't can food. I don't have the ability, I don't have the money to buy jars and to buy canners. How can I prep? Well, this video is just for you. So we're going to talk a little bit about prepping and prepping if you don't can. What I tell everybody is if you want to start to have a pantry, and you want to have a pantry not just for food, but for medical supplies, for food, soap, toilet paper, even water. You know, a pantry isn't just food. It's anything and everything that you will need to sustain you. I know a lot of people, like my daughter, took her stimulus money and instead of buying something frivolous like a TV or a computer, she actually used that money to prep. And she used that money not just for food, and she's not a big canner. What did she buy? Well, of course, she bought the beans and the rice, because we all know that's what you always are told. You gotta buy the beans and the rice. Beans and rice and beans, and how many ways can you eat beans and rice? That's great if you like beans and rice, but if you're not a big bean or rice eater, what else are you gonna do? Well, beans are something that's easy to store, and beans are high in protein. So you have to look at your diet. What I would suggest you do is for 1 month, write down what you typically eat. And depending on the region and depending where you live, that could really be affected. So let's break it down into smaller portions. If you live in the Northeast and you live off of a lot of vegetables that you buy from the grocery store, fresh food, you're going to have a problem. Because in the Northeast, if things would shut down, you just couldn't go to your farmer's market in January and be able to buy all of these things. But if you live in California and you are used to eating these things, it's warm all year, so typically you'll be able to find your foods that way. In a time of grid down, everybody will be affected, but depending on where you live, you're going to be a lot more affected. Take, for instance, Alaska. Alaska, most of their products are imported in. And so if times got bad in Alaska, it would be really harsh. So you have to put in where you live. I'm on the Northeast, so I can only talk about the Northeast. So what do? You write down for the month what you eat. And then you write down how can you prepare for that. If you don't can your own food, then you have to think a lot more ahead of time. So what do? Find the things that you like to eat and see if you can find canned ones that are store-bought. In other words, meat. Let's say you do eat meat. Then you can get government-issued canned meat like this. Most grocery stores carry it. Now, I paid $1.49 for this at the discount grocery store. If you have a discount grocery store, that is a great thing. You can really utilize that and you can actually save a lot of money. If you don't have that, which a lot of people don't, if you have an Aldi. An Aldi is another place that you can get canned meat and things like that, and it's a big savings. If you don't have an Aldi, then you're going to have to be really diligent every week finding out the sales of your grocery store. Every week they usually have a sale. Go in there and just buy the sale item. So canned meat, you don't have to can your own meat. You can get canned meat. You don't have to have your own beans. You can buy canned beans. Walmart oftentimes has a case sale, or they're really cheap. Walmart has cheap vegetables for 39 cents to 49 cents. They have specials and sales. I can my own corn. Buy canned corn. In fact, you can probably buy it cheaper than canning your own if you don't have certain resources like I do. Now you can grow your own, which is much better than canned, at the store, but if you don't can food, you can buy it. All right, so what foods should we really have on hand? The whole key is when a grid is down or we're facing a big crisis, well, we can't leave our home. Like, we know what that's like. What do we need? So we need things like this, oatmeal. So you want things that will feed you with a little bit of amount, but will feed you for much longer. You don't want to eat cakes and cookies and sugar stuff because sugar actually makes you hungrier. In other words, when you eat it, you burn it up and you're hungry for more of it. You want things that will sustain your stomach for a long time. You could eat oatmeal in the morning and that would last you most of the day. Gruel. They called it gruel back in the 1800s, and it was a type of cooked wheat, and it wasn't exactly oatmeal. Oatmeal's a lot better, but oatmeal is something you want to have. You can also make oatmeal and add a little bit of fruit. So if you have canned fruit, you can add canned fruit to it. Then you do have a little bit of sweetener. I talk about having sweeteners in your pantry because that is a big important thing. So back in World War II and all those times when sugar was really rationed, sugar was a food that was a comfort food that was really hard to find. And what happens is your food becomes so monotonous that you actually crave to have something a little sweet. You remember in the American soldiers and how they had chocolate, and they went and where they were at different places in times of war, they would have their chocolate and they would share it amongst other people. So, and that chocolate was something really special. You know, those were things that were really hard to find. And so having sweet, and I always say about having it in a jelly form, because like I said, if you make oatmeal, you could add a teaspoon or a tablespoon of jelly to it. So you have your taste buds, a whole new approach of your tasting of the oatmeal, and you can add your fruit that way. So in jelly, oh, I always strongly suggest jelly. Jelly, it doesn't take much to learn how to do that. And I had videos on how to can without canning lids, the old-fashioned way of making jelly. So those are things, and you can buy store-bought jelly. So what is another thing is really important is peanut butter. So we have peanut butter. Peanut butter is another thing that's really important. Why is that? Because it has protein. So we're going to have to try to find a protein in different ways. So how do we do that? Well, in meat, but you know, meat is expensive. Canned meat is expensive. But we have things like this, like peanut butter. Now, peanut butter is cheap per unit, cheaper than meat. And you can put peanut butter on things, and that will really help. Learning how to bake bread and make bread, and learning how to do the old skills that you would have read about or heard about. And those things are really important. So we have to step back and look at how was life lived 100 years ago? Well, not even that long ago. Let's say 60 years ago or 70 years ago. We're going to be home more. And I have a feeling that probably by this winter, we are going to be home more again. And some of you are already implementing not going away as much. If you're in the Northeast like me, it can be really hard in the wintertime, because in the wintertime, you have a lot of cloudy weather, you have a lot of freezing rain and snow, and you're craving something fresh. Now let me show you what you can do. There are all kinds of kits like this that you can buy, and you can sprout your own sprouts. I sprout in the wintertime. I sprout wheat, barley, peas, broccoli, radishes. You can sprout your food, and then you have fresh green food. You can add this to anything. You can add it to a burger, to rice. You can add these sprouts to anything, and then you're getting some of those nutrients and vitamins. So you really want to have nutrients and vitamins over the wintertime, especially when you're not outside. You want to stock up on vitamins. You want to have vitamin C and vitamin B complex. You want to have vitamin D. All of these things are really important, not just having food. Food is a big issue, but you need to have other things as well. We need to stock up on water. You got to have water. Water is really important if you don't have your own drinking water. If you're on a municipal water, you really want to have water, because all of that can stop in a moment. If you're on your own well, make sure you have a way that you can extract that water without having the electrical pump. All of these things are important. One thing a lot of people have gotten into, and I've gotten into, is dried foods. Now, dried foods is so easy, and oh, it is amazing to dry your own food. I did a lot of that this year. Dried tomatoes are amazing. And you can add these to rice. You can add these to just about anything. You can eat them plain. You know, there's so many things you can do with dried food. And really, dried food is something that anybody and everybody could do. It's not that expensive. It doesn't raise your electric that much. Do it now while you have a chance, because dried food is something that can really help you out. You know, and it's so expensive in the store, but you can dry food. You can dry herbs and all of those things. But if you can't do any of that, just keep watching at your grocery store. They can have discounts. They can have clearance. Walmart has clearance sales where they have clearance on their food as well. Our Walmarts all have a little area where you can find baked goods that are on clearance. You can dry the bread out and make your own breadcrumbs. You can get packaged food that is on clearance. Really check out. Most grocery stores I know of do have their food on clearance when it reaches the date. One thing that's so talked about is expiration dates. You don't need to worry about expiration dates, not on most things, except for dairy. Dairy would be one thing to be really cautious about. If you got a canned food and it is expired, that can last between 1 to 2 to 3 years past the expiration date, as long as you keep your dry in a dry and a dark location. Today it's really sunny in here. I opened up my blinds to just show you my pantry. Rice is another thing I like to do. I like to do up because we do like rice, and rice is so versatile. So I hope that people enjoy eating rice, because rice is something that is really good as well. All right, so one thing that we didn't really discuss, and that is information. So we live in a digital world, an informational world, and what happens if your phones wouldn't work or you couldn't get information? Do we know what happened in World War II? I keep, reference to that because that is something that we really learned from. People sat around their radios and to hear any kind of news. Now, this is the second one that I got. This is Sung Life, and what this is a portable radio. But who's got money for batteries? Who's got money for all of that? Well, this portable radio works with the power of the sun. And this is what it looks like. So it works with the power of the sun. And this one is brand new because I bought more than one, because I buy for my family as well. You also have in the back a hand crank. So you can crank it. So you crank it up. And then it has a light. So you crank it up and you produce your own energy, and it has a light. Has a light, and of course you have the radio. So when we get talking about pantry and pantry living and how to have a pantry, I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours, because this is something that I've been doing for years and years and years. And it's something really important to me. And so I'm showing you my pantry a little bit here while I'm sitting here. As you see, I like to have some herbs hanging in here. Another thing is, you just turn a room. This is a bedroom. So you don't need to have a special dungeon or a special place where you got to put your food. A bedroom, a spare room. Preferably, you want to have a room where it has windows, because you want to have open windows for oxygen, for airflow. You want to make sure you have blinds that close tight and it's really dark. You don't want to keep it in the sunlight, but you really do want to have that airflow. You want to have where you can have a door, or you get air. You don't want stagnant air, because stagnant, heavy air, it makes things rust and it's not good. So there you go, everyone. Is my pantry. It's stocked to the brim because we are at the end of the year. I do my canning and my butter and all that. But you can also buy canned butter. Buying canned butter is great because then you have it. It's G or ghee or whatever you want to call it. You can have it canned as well if you're not a canner. So this video was for all of you who don't can, but want to have resources like me and want to stock up. It's really simple to do, and I hope you do it now. Please do it now. In the day and age we're living in, you just don't know what tomorrow's going to hold. I believe we're in the days of Noah. If you don't know what that means, then look it up. I believe we're in the days of Noah, and I believe that we have a window. And I think we had a window wide open. So our window was wide open. And it's closing. Our window closed, and then it opened a little bit. And now it's closing again. And when it closes this time, it's going to close even further. That is my analogy. That's the only way I can say it. It would be like a door, and the door is wide open, but the door is starting to close, like the elevator door. So your elevator door is closing. And when it closes tight, it would be closed tight. I don't say these to, get views on YouTube. I don't say these because I think they sound like something people want to hear. I'm saying this because I believe that the window of opportunity for us is really closing. And if you're not going to heed it now, you'll never heed it. You'll never take it to heart, and you'll never do anything about it. And I hate to see what happens if you don't. I had given a warning 4 years ago, and everything in that video has come true. Scary. And I didn't even think anything about it. I was just heeding a warning 4 years ago, and I have that video right here. And looking back on that, everything has come true in that video. So I hope that you learn from this. If you're not a canner, that there's no excuse. If you don't can, you can still do things. Take care, everyone, and we'll see you guys tomorrow.